Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is another of my top 10 lists where I'm going to be looking at the top 10 Bronze Age comics of all time. And I'm going to look at how they performed from a year ago when I did my first video in January, so it's almost a year, where I looked at the top 10 list, and I'm now kind of seeing how well these books performed, who is the number one book right now, and how things shook up over the year. So it's been a pretty wild year. So this should be a really interesting one. And I was actually very surprised by the top 5 on this list, from 1 through 5, really different than what I would have expected. So this has just been a really great, crazy ride that we've been going on for this 2021 year. So let's take a look, see which books made the top 10 Bronze Age comics of all time. And what I'm going to be looking at is Go Collect's fair market value for these books. So, that's the standard that I'll be using. So the first book is Superman's Pal, Jimmy Olsen, 134. And this book was actually on my previous list in the number 8 position. Now it's actually the honorable mention. So it didn't even make the top 10 list. It is number 11 on the list. It is the first appearance of Darkseid in cameo. He's just very briefly shown. And this book has really tumbled in terms of its value. When I looked at it in my previous list, it had a fair market value because of a record sale of $16,200. Now if you look at the value for this book, it has a fair market value of around $10,000. So it's really gone down in value, which is not normal for most of the books that are on this list. Most of these books have really gone up in value, but this one is one of those rare exceptions where it's really dropped in value. There has been sales, but it just hasn't had that strong sale that we saw back in January of last year. The most recent sale was in September, and it was for around $10,000. So really, it's gone down a fair amount since that record sale that it had. So very interesting that this one didn't make the list in the top 10, but it's interesting to see it, a year later and see how well it performed. So the next on our list is Iron Fist number 14, and this is the number 10 spot on our list. And this is the 35-cent variant. So it's a rare variant. There's only 64 of these on the census, so very rare. And of those 64, there's no 9/8, and there's only 3 that are in a 9/4 grade. So that's the highest grade that's on the second highest grade that's on the census. There's actually a higher grade, which is 9/6, and there's 4 of those on the census, but none have had sales recently. Now, this one is one of those books where there hasn't been recent enough sales that we can really judge how expensive this book would be, but there was a past sale of $15,000 as a record sale in a 9/4. So I put it at the number 10 spot on the list because of that sale. So we really don't know how much this book would be because it's one that just doesn't have any recent sales. We just don't know. There are lower grades that have had sales a few years back, but nothing recently. This is one of those books that's sort of a ghost, hard to find, and if you find it, it is going to go for one of those big dollar amounts because it is so rare. So it is definitely an interesting book. It is actually the first appearance of Sabretooth. That's what its claim to fame is. And it's that rare 35-cent variant. You got to look out for it. So that is number 10 on our list. Number 9 on our list is Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, number 1. And this is the first appearance of Luke Cage. And it's the first appearance of Diamondback. And, it's just a bunch of really strong characters from the Luke Cage series. There was a series about Luke Cage, so this was a pretty hot book at one time. And this book had a recent a record sale of $25,800, and that's what I reported back on in January. And since that time, they've really said, so this was like in 2016, it had a sale of 24,000, but really they're suggesting that the fair market value for this book is around 29,000. So it has gone up slightly from that previous record sale of 25,000. So this book, reasonably good performance. Not stellar performance compared to some of the books that we have seen in the past. If you watch my Silver Age, my Silver Age top 10 list, it is insane how much those books have gone up. These Bronze Age ones haven't really seen those major climbs, at least the lower ones on this list. But still, a very respectable $29,000 for a CGC 9.8 if one ever comes up for sale. That's what they're expecting it would be going for. Okay, so number 8 on our list is another price variant. It is the Star Wars number 1 35-cent price variant. And now this one is another rare book. It's not as rare as that Iron Fist, but it only has 245 comics on the census in the universal grade. And it has no 9/8. It has 2 9/6s, but no 9/8. So it's a major book in terms of the Star Wars franchise. And Star Wars has been fairly hot for this last year. And it's one of those books where it has so many first appearances. Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan, just a whole bunch of major first, Han Solo. I think actually he's in number 2. But a lot of first appearances in this book. Very important key for Star Wars fans. This book, when I did my original video, had a record sale of 27,000. Just to put that in perspective, the regular edition, the 30-cent edition, had a record sale of $2,600. So 10 times the regular edition. So very expensive for this 35-cent price variant. And when you look for this price variant, let's say you're looking for it in the wild, well, be really careful because there is a 35-cent second printing of this book. So do not mistake the two. The way that you can tell the difference between the two, and I'll just open it up, is if you look here, the first print will have one big feature. It'll be like a square box. Usually the reprint is in sort of a diamond shaped box. So this is what you should look for. And often the second print will say second print here. So definitely make sure that you get that elusive first print of this 35-cent variant. Okay, and with all that said, what is the fair market value? Well, there's been 2 recent sales for this book in a 9.4, one for $40,800 and one for $36,000. So this book has gone up considerably from when I did my original video. Now, it actually dropped in terms of this top 10 list. It was previously number 5 on my list, and now it's number 8 on my list. So it has gone down, but I figure that fair market value is that 40,800 range. So a pretty major book, but it didn't make the top 7. And the number 7 on the list is Green Lantern number 76. Now this is kind of a major book because it's symbolic of the Bronze Age. It was really considered the first Bronze Age DC comic, and it's where the Green Arrow and Green Lantern sort of begin as a title, as a joint title. This book is pretty rare in terms of high grades. There's only 2 in the 9/8. There's 1,700 of these, almost 1,800 of these on the census, but in that high grade, very, very rare. Now this book, it had a record sale when I did my original video of 31,800 in that high grade, but now they figure that the fair market value for this book is around $45,000. So it has really, really gone up since that record sale. And if you look, that record sale was back in 2010. So it's maybe not performed as well as some of these other books in that time period, but it's still well worth more than its original, the previous sale in 2010. So just to be aware of that. DC books have generally underperformed compared to Marvel books. So there's been so far 2 DC books on this list, and both have generally underperformed. So just something to be aware of. Poor DC. Oh well. So that's number 7 on our list. Number 6 on our list is XMen 94. This is such a major book. It is the second appearance of the Colossus, Nightcrawler, second appearance of Storm and Thunderbird, and third appearance of Wolverine. But it's also the first title appearance for all these characters where they're in the X-Men title. So that's very major, and this is the first kind of where they sort of stopped the reprints that were happening with X-Men. It sort of had gone into a lull, the whole title X-Men, and this was them bringing back life to the X-Men series. So a very major book in terms of X-Men. This book, when I looked at it originally, it was number 10 on my list. It was pretty low down on the list. Now it's number 6, and it has a fair market value of around $46,000. Now it had one record sale of $63,000, but that's kind of an outlier, and the prices have really dropped since then. That's sort of an outlier. The 1 year average is around 6,000, so it's got that weird outlier, but it's one of those ones where it has really affected the overall fair market value for this book, and they're sort of assuming that the fair market value is around $49,000. But you can sort of probably pick this up for much cheaper than that. There has been low sales. There's been a sale this year for a CGC 9.8 of only $700. So there's a huge gap in that CGC fair market value and what prices have been realized. So that's a kind of big interesting thing about this book. Now previously there were records when I did my original video in January. There was a record sale of 14,200. So this book is all over the place. It is very hard to pin down in terms of what its true fair market value is, and I just want that to be you to be aware of that when you search for this book in the wild. But it's one that is definitely a major book for the X-Men franchise, and it's one that I think has real potential to grow because of the fact that there is going to be the animation series coming out very, very soon. So expect this book to heat up again. Okay, so that was previously number 10, and now it's number 6. Now we're going to go to the number 5 book on our list, and it's another major X-Men book. This is Giant Size X-Men number 1, and this is the first appearance of all those characters: Colossus, Storm, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird, the new X-Men, and it's also the second appearance of Wolverine. And this book is just such a major, iconic book from the Bronze Age. It is just the book. So this book, when I did my original list, it had a record sale of $22,500. Now that sale has been blown totally out of the water by a sale that happened in June of this year, where it was for $72,000. Now that was kind of an outlier, and the price has kind of pulled back from there, but they still say that the fair market value for this book is around $56,000. So this book had really heated up for a while. It was one of those ones where it was just going and going and going and going. And it looked like it was going to be like $100,000 book. Didn't quite get there. and now it's kind of pulled back a bit, but it's still well above where it was when I did my original video almost a year ago. So definitely a book that has heated up. So that is number 5 on our list. It was previously number 7 on my list. This book has almost 10,000 copies on the census, so it is a fairly common book, and there's 200 of them at that 9.8. But it's just one of those books that is highly sought after, and it's one that has that real flexibility in price. Again, because of the fact that there are so many copies on the census. And it's one of those ones where if you're patient with it, you can pick it up for a reasonably good price. Okay, next book on our list is House of Secrets number 92. This is the first appearance of Swamp Thing. And it's just one of those classic Bernie Wrightson covers. Just a beautiful cover. I love this comic. I'm going to expand it just so you see how beautiful. What a beautiful cover. This is just a classic cover. Just a really great cover for this comic. And this one, because of the blacks, it is just really hard to find it in high grade. There are only 3 on the census at that 9.8, and it's just really hard to get it in that 9.8. And as a result, there was a huge sale for this book at $90,000. So that is why I put it at number 4 on our list, and the fair market value they think is around $88,000. So just really gone up. I mean, when I originally did my video for this book, it was ranked number 11 on the list. It was my honorable mention book. So it didn't even make the list. But it has really jumped since then. And it was only had a record sale of $14,000 at that time. So it is really gone up in value. Just a really exciting book in terms of the census. There's 2,400 of these on the census, and there's just so few of them at that 9.8 grade. So that is why we're seeing these huge jumps in prices. Also, there's, it's just one of those loved comic covers. Okay, so number 3 on the list is really interesting. This one is Werewolf by Night, number 32. This is the first appearance and origin of the Moon Knight. This, huge spec around this book. It is the, book that is super hot right now because the Moon Knight series is just about to come out. So lots of talk about this book. And it's been a book that has been, hot for a long time. And just keeps on breaking new ground with records. This one actually hasn't had any 9.8 sales recently. But they figure the fair market value for this book would be around $92,000. Now, when I looked at this book a year ago, I was seeing the fair market value being around $31,000. So it's tripled in price since that time. This has been a really hot book. And this one is a little bit more common than some of the other ones that are on this list. There's 3,900 copies of this on the census, and there's 19 in that 9.8 grade. Just really great book. I actually have this book in a 4.5, and I paid $400 for it, so I'm laughing to the bank on this one. This one has been a really great performer. So this is number 3 on our list. Moon Knight, first appearance in Werewolf by Night, number 32. Now, number 2 on our list is kind of surprising for me. This is Incredible Hulk, number 181. And actually, I could have put this lower on the list, and I'll explain why. This is the first full appearance of Wolverine, and it is a book that had previously fairly impressive sales. It actually had a record sale of 150,000, and that's really what I'm judging this book on in terms of its value. And that was for a very special thing. The only one on this entire list that has this, which is a 9.9. There was a 9.9 that sold for $150,000. So that was one of the reasons why it made the list at number 2 spot, because that sale blew away everything below it. Even the fair market value is only $84,000, which is lower than the Werewolf by Night, but because of that 9/9 sale at $150,000, it just blows away all these past records. So this is just a really great book. There's so many of these on the census, though. This is one of the most common on the census for these top 10 lists. There's 12,000 of these on the census, and there is 199 and 173 copies of this on the census in the 9/8. So just really fairly common book. The interesting thing about this, there's 25 signed copies that are on this list as well in the 9/8. And that, if any of those come up for sale, those could be really big sales. So I'll actually flip over and see if I can see if there's any big sales. So we got a 9/8 that sold this year for $69,500. So just so you know, there was some big sales at the beginning of this year for this book. And I imagine that book has gone up since that time. So just a really great first full, I say that with such irony. So first cover appearance of Wolverine. It's just a great book, very well loved within the community, and huge demand for this book, and that has really seen the price be driven up. When I did my original video, a 9/8 had a fair market value of around $49,000, and really now we've seen that almost doubled at a fair market value of around $84,000. So, this book has performed quite well. Now, number 1 on my list is one that I knew that was going to be number 1. It's had a massive sale, and it's really been because of that sale that this book has just really appeared at the top of the list. It is Marvel Spotlight number 5, which is the first appearance of the Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, and it's the first appearance of Crash Simpson, and first appearance of Roxanne Simpson and Xanthanos, Zathos. I'm totally mispronouncing his name, but this one had a massive sale. That really shocked the community. Now, this is one of those books where it's got the black cover. If you take a look at it, it's just all black. Now, when you have these all black covers like this, it is really hard to get in that high grade. And that is really what's driven up this book in terms of the high grade market. It's just, spine ticks will show. So there's only 4 of these on the census. I mean, we can compare that to the 173 of the Hulk, So, it's very rare in that high grade. And when rarity does affect price. So this one had a record sale of $264,000, which is almost double what the Hulk, the 9/9 sold for. So this has been kind of the most impressive book on this list in terms of how well it has performed. When I did the original video, this book was number 2 on my list with a record sale of $48,000 in the 9/8. Now it's gone up almost 5 times. It's gone up more than 5 times. Huge jump in value for this book, and it's really been seen right across all the grades below it. I actually have a 5.0 of this. I paid $200-300 for my copy, so I've been quite happy that this one has gone up. Actually, I had every book on this list except for the variants. I have them as the regular editions, but this has been a really interesting year to see these prices just go through the roof. And this is the number 1 book on the top 10 list So what do you think? Does this one deserve to be the top 10? Is Ghost Rider that major of a character that deserves to be number 1 on the list? What do you think about this list? Please leave your comments below. And check out my other top 10 lists. I'm doing a retrospective of all of my top 10 lists for the gold, silver, and bronze, and copper, and modern ages. So you can check those out. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.